talking to Danny Cahill today, a recruiter who's been training people for the past 30 years. Hey, Danny, can you tell us how you got started?
I think I can remember that far back. Hey, yeah.
Yay!
You know, it's the great hypocrisy of my life that I've made a lot of money by helping people get jobs, and I've never had to do it. I started here 6 days out of college. I never had a resume. So I spend my whole life looking at resumes and telling people whether they're good or bad resumes. I'm a complete phony. I have no idea if it's a good resume. I've never had one. Yeah, I just came in right out of college. I had no idea what the job was. I just was aspirational, cocky. I thought I could be good at something. I had no idea what. And frankly, I had a negative sort of connotation drummed into me by friends about sales, you know, that salespeople were manipulative and pushy, and I didn't want to be those things. And it turned out either that's not what sales is, or I actually am pushy and manipulative because I was really good at it fast. And I enjoyed the sort of battle of wits on the phone and trying to convince people to do things that I thought would be the best thing for them. I found that if I got a client that I really thought was a good company, I could be really zealous. I could be evangelical with a candidate, and I could convince them to go interview because I really believed they were making a mistake if they didn't. So yeah, I hate to say this because as a trainer, I know it's not true for most people, but you know, a lot of life is complete luck, and I happened to walk into something I was an absolute natural for right from Jump Streets. I never had, you know, second guesses. I never had a sophomore slump. I never went into a slump. I just thought it was great right from the start.
So it totally lined up.
I wonder what made you such a natural fit for it, Danny. Like what really resonated with you, or yeah, I wonder if you could shed some light on it, like why it was just such a, you know, a natural take for you.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe, Todd, that I could have done this job at 12 years old if my voice wasn't even higher and squeakier than it is now, because I think the gift is people reading, right? Like I could wake up in the morning at 12 years old and feel the vibe, and I knew that my parents had had a fight the night before, and then I could look and see that my mother had won, so I was on her side that morning because I could tell what went down. And that's really the gift of the business. I can tell when a client is jerking me around 15 seconds into a call. Other people need 20 minutes before they can tell. I can tell sometimes whether or not even a candidate knows that they're fooling themselves. They're never going to move. They're going to stay where they are. They're just flirting on the phone. I can tell. Now, you learn a lot of skill sets that back up that intuition, but intuition is something you have early and you have it your whole life, or you don't. And I don't believe, maybe you guys can do it, but I don't think it's trainable. If you have it, I can make you rich. If you don't have it, you know, it's like a sense of humor. If you don't have one, you can read all the books in the world on jokes. You're not funny. If you are funny, you're funny. And you don't have to practice it. You don't have to work at it. And everybody knows you're funny, right?
Yeah, I love it. So keep me going on the story, Danny. So you start, you take to it like a fish to water.
Yeah.
You know, walk me through the journey.
Yeah, and I know that you guys do a lot of work in this mode, right? So I'm 4 years in. I'm 26 years old, and these are 1980 level, 86 actual level numbers. But the whole company did like $675,000 that year, and I did $580,000 of it. Wow. So all my friends were like, what are you doing there? You are the company. Why don't you start your own? But the person who hired me was my mentor. He taught me the business. I was loyal to him. I never would have violated a non-compete. I just went in his office and I said, dude, I'm either going to sit out the non-compete for a year because I got plenty of money, or you're going to sell me the company. One of those two things is going to happen right now. And, you know, he couldn't afford to lose me. That's why I left the company's name and his name, Hobson Associates. So I really just wanted to have my own thing at that point. And I also knew, and maybe some of your clients feel this way too, at 26, I had a good life. I was making a lot of placements, coming and going as I pleased. I was the golden child. But I already could tell that I wouldn't want to be that at 36, certainly not 46, and no way at 56. Like, I knew myself. I needed I needed a team. I needed applause. I needed reinforcements. I wanted to have people to go out to with the Christmas parties, and I wanted to have a team, and I had to build it myself. So I knew I would have to scale something larger. And that's pretty much, what happened. From that point on, I said, I'm not going to bring anybody on unless I could take 2 or 3 weeks to train them. So my gig was, I'd make a couple placements. I'd say, okay, plenty of money in the bank, hire somebody, take 2 weeks and train them. And at the time, and unfortunately still, as you guys know, most people hire someone, throw them on the phone, give them a computer and say, good luck. Well, that doesn't work. It's why the turnover rate is so high in the industry. It's why trainers like me and you get jobs, right? I just said, that's crazy. I'm going to have less turnover, more tenure, and I'm going to have to train people. But I didn't know how to train people. So the way I trained in the beginning was I put people right next to me and I said, watch me. And they just mimicked me, but that wasn't really teaching them. It was fun for me, but it wasn't teaching them. So I had to learn how to train, and I had to put methodologies and protocols together. I had a tape recorder at my desk. We taped everything I said. And eventually I had an actual training system, and word got out that I was growing my company fast and that we were hitting numbers that other people weren't hitting. And then people started calling and saying, hey, can you speak at this conference? I said, sure. I don't know what that means, but sure. And pretty soon I was a speaker, and that became a training company. And then 30 years goes by so fast, you can't even believe it.
I love it, man. I love it. So tell me about the transition. I mean, are you still active in the search firm part? Are you mainly on the training part? Tell me a little bit more about kind of where Danny's, time, energy, effort, like what he's focused on.
Yeah, I think I give this advice to all trainers, right? So one of my biggest fears, and I think this fear came because late in his life, I took my mother to see Frank Sinatra, and he was almost unable to sing. He was just sort of croaking into the microphone, and he had a teleprompter to read the lyrics that he'd been singing for 40 years. He literally was like squinting and going, "I've got you under my," I was like, "Skin, Jesus, Frank, skin, holy cow." And I remember leaving that concert going, why doesn't someone in the Sinatra family love that man enough to get him off the stage?
Yep.
And I just said, I don't want to be that trainer who was a good recruiter for a few years and then becomes a trainer, because it's a lot more fun to talk about it than it is to do it, a lot less risky. But then 5 years later, they're telling the same stories that you heard 5 years ago, and the world passes them by. And I lived in fear of people coming to a Danny Cahill training conference and thinking the same thoughts I had about Sinatra. So I knew that I would never be a speaker if I stopped having a search firm. My search firm is a think tank for my training. I never have any sort of webcast or any sort of training event where the things I'm talking about aren't things that are currently working in my search firm. So I think I've got a rep that I hope I deserve for, I keep it real, it actually works. It's not the same stuff. The stuff that I was doing 10 years ago on a desk is absolutely irrelevant today.
So true.
It just is. So why would I talk about it? So you have to, I mean, I've been incredibly pumped up. I know that sounds perverse, by COVID, because you had to adapt. You had to make some changes. You had to do it fast. And it was kind of exciting for me to say, okay, what's going to work? What's not going to work? Let's make it up as we go along, but let's see if we can make this work. And our fiscal year, September to September, and we were about 92% a goal. And October last month was the best month we had in 2 years. So I'm very proud of the fact that my search firm continues to be my world, and my training and my speaking is an adjunct of that world. So long-winded answer to your question is I'm very involved every day. I no longer run a desk. I will help a recruiter get a deal. I will close deals. I'm often troubleshooting, but my job is to hire people, train people. I hand them off to my general manager and her managers. And other than that, I play gracious host and pour coffee.
I like that you do that. I like that you kept that going because that's really invaluable. And I'm curious to know, like, obviously you approach this year with an attitude of excitement of
Yeah.
like, what am I going to learn from this? And so I'd love to know, what are some of the things that you've learned during this year that you're like, this is what's working?
Right. It's funny. I have a lot of friends who have been in the business as long as me, and they go, "I've been through 4 recessions." Well, this isn't a recession. This goes so far beyond a recession, right? For most recessions, you can see them coming by a gradual sort of increase in the call to job order ratio. It just takes longer, and it hits some sectors, but it doesn't hit other sectors. So you just move over to the other sector. So we've never had an economy where we consciously put all sectors on pause and send everybody home. And yeah, there was an economic relief package in the beginning, but it was very short term because people thought it would only last a couple months, and it was unfortunately geared toward payroll, and it didn't help people with expenses. So, if somebody had a search firm in hospitality or aerospace, yeah, there's no pivoting. No, there is no pivoting. It's done. It's over. It's 2 or 3 years. But fortunately for us, we could see that certain of our practices, cybersecurity, life sciences, healthcare, medical device, would not be affected at all, and others would be affected. So we decided to put recruiters in the areas that worked and wait it out. And fortunately for us, there was a lot of work in the sectors that we moved people into, and then the work started to come back within about 3 months, and we held on to those recruiters. I worked really hard and spent a lot of money holding on to people that could not make placements for 2 or 3 months, because in my opinion, this is what saving money is for during good times, so that you can protect your franchise. And we were able to put those people back as soon as the economy came back, which was around May. And from that point on, we've done, very, very well.
That's awesome, Danny.
And
I
you
just
guys
want
made
to
a pivot
recognize.
too, right? You guys made a pivot.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Close to
we
You got
manufacturing,
to.
you know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. That's just awesome, man. Like the fact that you saved money and that you put others first and you really made sure you protected them. A lot of people wouldn't do that, man. So, I just want to recognize.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. People always ask me, is Hobson like a family to you? And I'm like, no. I like these people a lot more than I
More
like
than my family.
Uh-oh.
you know?
I'm curious from a biz perspective, what you like for client generation. So what you like to do. I've talked to a lot of people over the past, month. Some are big fans of content. Some are big fans of cold calls. Some are big fans of, drop-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if you're one of the blend them all together, if you're kind of more old school, if you moved into new things, or kind of, what your vision is on that side of the business, because that's really the lifeblood of every search firm.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I think the hallmark of our firm is we never waver from the fact that we are always BD centric.
Mhm.
In the hottest recruiting market of all time, which I still think was probably 1999, the .com, well, not far behind was 2015 to 2018, right? Where everybody said, it's easy to get a job order. It's all about candidates. We were always countercultural as far as that goes. I think the business is about BD. It's about clients, and every recession proves it. And people always get caught with their pants down. They haven't made a marketing call in 5 years, and they go looking for an easy way out. So first of all, we philosophically always stay client-centric. I don't mean this to be cynical. It's just fatalistic. Okay, you have 3 or 4 good clients giving you all their business. You're going to lose 1 or 2 of them next year for reasons even they can't see right now. So we're always trying to find new clients. Our bonuses and our commissions reflect that priority. We pay people less for candidates than we do for job orders. So the whole philosophy is backed up that way. As far as methods, look, I was the first firm that I know of to have Monster in 97. I was the first beta for LinkedIn in the Northeast. So I'm all about trying new stuff. But I'm also metrics driven. So like I said, we just finished our fiscal at the end of September, so I can show you the metrics. We got most of our job orders during COVID by hardcore MPC calls,
Mm.
cold calling. Now, part of that is because these clients were home and had time, so we had more live connects. Certainly, we had more live connects this year than we did last year. But when we look at where we get jobs, and like I said, we're metrics driven, so I don't want to do this based on anecdotal. Oh, I got a job order from my email marketing. Then when I get hired as a consultant to come in and look at these firms and I look at their email marketing, the percentages are super low. It's fractional, right? They just don't want to make cold calls, or they never learned how to make cold calls. So for us, it's cold marketing calls, referrals from previous clients, candidate intel. The candidates often know what's going on in markets more than we do. We simply ask candidates, what companies would you like us to present you to? And they tell us about a company we never heard of. We follow the money with private equity and venture capital. And part of it is email marketing. Part of it is, the popular thing right now is I'm a content provider. So no, I don't make cold calls. I write, clever postings, and I live in my client's LinkedIn ecosystem. And my whole life is about likes and shares and comments. And yeah, okay. And then I look at their numbers and they're billing 5 cents and they're driving a 20-year-old car. I think it's a multi-platform approach. I don't think the quote new way is bad and the old way is good. Whatever works, works, right? And it really is up to an individual. I have some recruiters who are awesome at email. They write the way they talk. So they're really good in email, and they can get people to respond because they write funny, interesting emails. Other people, they can barely scratch their name in the ground with a stick, but they're amazing on the phone. So why not use what you're good at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the best people here, and we have people, our top people are billing $1 million, somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million, all our partners, and they use all of those tools. I think the difference is what we've evolved to as a company is because I made my mark and learned the business because I was an animal on the phone. It is not important to me that Kate does it my way. That's about me. That's about your own insecurities. That's about your own neurosis. I want the biggest badass search firm I can have. And if you guys come up with a way to get job orders that is better than our way, I will become an acolyte and climb the mountain and genuflect on your altar because I just want to make money, right? I don't care how we do it. And I find way too many owners are just tied to the way they used to do it, or the opposite. I find so many owners who are just like buying the latest, newest toy and saying, oh, I invested this money in this new platform or this new tool, and this is the way to go. Some combination of all those things. I got a big budget for new internet tools every year, and I train people on how to make good old-fashioned cold calls every year as well.
Right. So it sounds
Maybe
like you
see what happens.
also play to their strengths. Like I know
Yeah,
you're a trainer, and it sounds to me that you're looking at, okay, you're good at this, you're good at that. Let's highlight those and build those. Because often like when you've got a strength, it's easier to make it even better. And then there's this overall approach where it's like kind of like all the things. It's not this is the best. It's let's use them all.
yeah. I think it's tempting as a teacher or as a trainer to identify weaknesses and say, oh, I'm going to shore up your weakness, Todd. Oh, you're not good at this. And that's, of course, intoxicating to the person that is hiring you as a trainer because they want to get better. So they're like, oh, I'm really weak at this. And you go in to shore up their weaknesses, and then you'll find how hard it is to shore up their weaknesses because they're really married to their weakness. I saw Tiger Woods on TV, and they were talking about how his bunker play compared to his other parts of his golf game weren't as good, and he doesn't get as many birdies when he hits the ball in the bunker. So is he going to work on his bunker play in the off season? And he said, no, I'm just going to stop hitting it in the bunkers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think as a trainer, I've gotten more by emphasizing someone's strength and ignoring their weakness. Like for example, I spent years of my life trying to get really good recruiters to take more time to plan their day. And it was incredibly hypocritical because I didn't like to plan. I wanted to make things happen. I wanted to close. I hated planning. And here I am as a trainer saying planning's very important. And finally, I don't know why it took so long, but about 1,000 years into this, I finally said, why don't I hire an admin to do the planning for the top biller and just give their weakness to someone else who it might be a strength for.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't have been more obvious. That was about 10 years of my life. So that's how that's how dumb I am, really. But I'm with you, Kate. It's like emphasize your strength and try to work around your weakness is probably a faster way to success and an easier way and a happier way. There's nothing harder than trying to get people to do as adults something they've already decided they're either not good at or hate.
Right, and don't want to do.
And don't want to do.
Yeah, let me echo that. So everyone listening, focus on your strengths, find a way to work around your weaknesses.
Yes.
You don't need to shore everything up. You don't need to become brilliant in every category. You need to listen to what Danny's saying, find an admin, outsource it, find someone to team up with, find another way to work around it and focus on what you're good at. Yeah, that's awesome,
Amen.
man. Yeah,
Amen,
a lot of trainers don't do that. They teach what they know. And I'll always tell recruiters, I'm like, man, it's okay to share your anecdotes of what works for you, but you know, if you're going to teach someone, you got to be focused on what works for them, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Let me ask you this just selfishly. How do you keep your top billers? Because that's something a lot of guys and mentors that I have that run successful firms, you know, people are making good money and they do what you did, which is you left.
Right.
So, you know, how do you strike that balance? What do you do there?
So it was 1998, right? And by that time I had, 6 or 7 really good recruiters who I was completely loyal to, assumed they were loyal to me. And I got hired. I was starting to get popular as a speaker. And I got hired by America Online back in the day to speak at a very big conference of theirs. And it was not in the recruiting industry, but someone had heard me speak and they asked me to do this big speech at America Online when they were merging with Warner. And it was in DC and there were thousands of people in the audience. I'd never had that big an audience. I got paid 10 times the fee I normally got paid. It was the big time. And like an idiot, I came back and was bragging about it for 3 days to my staff. And it was like a stand-up comedian bombing. They were quiet. Nobody said congratulations. And I was like, I don't get it. What did I do wrong? Am I just bragging? So I got one of them aside, who was a good friend of mine, Amy. And she said, so what happens to us if you get more of these gigs and you decide that it's more fun to be a famous speaker than it is to run a search firm? Now, at the time I was like 39 and I was so offended. I was like, I would not do that. My life is here. You guys know that. But then I went home that weekend angry. And then I thought, well, of course they look at it that way. They don't own the firm. I own the firm. I can pay them well. I can treat them well. I can help close their deals. But up till then, they were staying because they knew my management was effective, that I was fiscally conservative. So I always had money to grow the company. And I helped them close deals. So they trusted my competence. But they still weren't owners. So on Monday morning, I called my lawyer and I said, we got to come up with some sort of equity partnership plan. And at that time, we made 4 of them equity partners. Now everybody since that we hired is eligible to become an equity partner. There are partners, there are junior partners, and there are senior partners. It's a 10-year vesting schedule. At the end of 10 years, if you want to go do something else or you want to retire, which 5 people have done, they cashed in. I write them a big check. We have a party. Everybody celebrates, and they move on with their lives. So the real honest answer to your question is, while I still think we pay well and I still think I have good management and I think we do care about each other as people, at the end of the day, they're owners of the company.
That was a genius move. I just want to
Yeah.
take a moment and just like not like how thoughtful too. Like how can I keep these people? Like how can I care enough and take a moment in my life that I was like lit up and super excited about, and then felt this huge contrast of a letdown, because my people around me weren't celebrating with me. And how can I make it so that they're excited and on board too?
Right, right. Because it goes
Yeah.
back to what we said at the beginning, right? It's like good people can read the room,
Hmm.
and you can. So I had the ability to read the room, and then I also had the ability to look at it from their perspective and go, yeah, it isn't cool for them long term. I have to make it cool for them long term.
Mm.
And you know, it's now we're at a point where 8 of those people who are still here have been with me between 20 and 30 years. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah, that's really smart, Danny. When I was listening to you, just for my own selfish knowledge, why do you think you're successful? Do you think it's the intuition? I mean, listening to you, I feel like it's that natural intuition. Um, but I'm curious what you think. And I know there's always the answer of like the humility answer of like it's, you know, my mom and my dad, and like I want to know. I want to know what it is you think about, you know, what it is about you that's made you successful.
Well, I wouldn't have known it at the time. In fact, I was probably pretty resentful as a kid. Um, but the great gift of my life has been that we were poor when I was young. I had extremely loving parents. My father was the kindest person I've ever known, but we didn't have anything, and he was sick, so we had no way of making money. And so when you grow up in abject poverty and shame, it becomes a great driver, right? You don't want that to happen to you ever, so you never believe you've arrived. But as it applies to this business, it also means that I understood right from the beginning that had someone like me existed for my father, had a recruiter ever called my father and said, "Would you like to make more money? Would you like to look at this new job?" He would have said, "Hell yes." And it could have saved a lot of heartache for my
Mm.
family. But they never called. They didn't exist. And so, you know, to me, it was walking into a solution
Mm.
for my past, right? Every time that we help somebody, every time that we improve somebody's life, um, to me, it's an honor, and it's a reminder of what never happened for me. And so
Yeah.
it's important to give that back and pay it forward. On top of it being super lucrative, and on top of it giving you a certain level of status, and let's not forget all the ego and id things that you get from it. But I think at its core,
Mm.
that's why, I have no intention of retiring.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I really felt that, man. Like I can tell that there's a real purpose, like there's a real calling there. There's a lack there that I can hear you giving back and contributing, and it isn't about you. Like I can hear, you know what I mean? Like I can hear you being like, dude, I ain't shit. This is about me. This is about me helping when, you know, wishing that someone had been there and me filling that role. That's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah. To me, it's the only real reason to make money, other than, you can only take, once you have the things you need, then what do you make money for? And the only reason I have to make money, you guys have to make money, is because it's how adults keep score, right? Like the way I attract recruiters is I introduce them to other top producing recruiters here and show them the things they're driving to work. But other than that, I really don't have much interest in money. People are always surprised because I've done well, and it's like, I have one house, I have one car. Um, you know, I, I I can only be in one room at a time. I don't understand. And every time there's a recession, I'm glad that I am that way, because you got to have savings in order to hold on to your franchise and get through a recession. And the people that get in trouble are the ones that, they billed 400, but they spent 500 last year. And I'm always amazed, because I mentor a lot of top producers, at how much financial stress they're under, even though they've been billing $500,000 for 10 years. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why don't you have money? You
Yeah,
know?
I have a
Yeah.
couple of friends like that, and I'm like, man, you make me nervous. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the
Where I'm
next
like,
big shiny thing,
yeah,
right.
like,
Yeah, yeah. Rather than staying humble and
they
true.
make, they make 50 grand in a month and their expenses are 45. And I'm like, what the,
Yeah.
let me just one more thing, just because I'm curious about you and your growth. Were you always so clear on the purpose and the calling or the contribution, or was there kind of like a switching point? Because a lot of people are really focused on like, got to get this, got to get this, got to get this, and then they kind of evolve into that. I'm wondering what that transition was like for you. Like, is that something that you recently became clear about, in the last 10 years, or is that something that you kind of just always knew?
Yeah. When people say, uh, when you get older, do you become more wise? If you do, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, still dumb. Got it.
Yeah, I have learned absolutely nothing. I feel like I'm the exact same person. No, don't get me wrong. The first like 5 to say 8 years, I was, pretty typical of somebody who had no money and suddenly was making money. And I bought the sports cars, and yeah, for some reason I had this arbitrary goal of I wanted $1 million in the bank by the time I was 30. Um, and you achieve those things and you're like, so what? I
Mhm.
mean, so what? These are just numbers. So it'd be lying to say that I was always this centered, but it was pretty early on. Pretty early on. And again, it always goes back to your parents. It's just, you get a certain value system. And my parents were really balanced. Like my mother favored me, and my father said to me, "Look, I have 4 kids, not one. So I don't care that you're a captain of the basketball team. I don't care that you have a Mercedes. Like, um, as long as you like what you're doing and you're doing it honestly, and you're helping people, not hurting them, then that's a good life. And I don't care what you drive, and I don't care how much money you have." So yeah, I was grounded pretty early on, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Dude, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. There, people could learn so much from you, man. Just listening to anything that you've done, or watching any of your videos, or
Thank
just
you.
anything that you've done. There's just so much there. Kate,
Yeah.
Danny's team, what do they have for the audience that want to connect more and learn more about them?
They have a 1 month free premium membership. Danny, could you just fill us in a little bit about what they're getting access to?
Yeah.
Um,
So according to Danny, is an online coaching and training system. At this point, we've had it for almost 20 years. So there's literally 1,700 pages of content. We add to it every couple of weeks. I go into my training center and make more videos. So it's an organic, ongoing training system. It's really geared toward, I know you guys help a lot of solopreneurs who, other than you guys, they don't have anybody to talk to, and they don't have anybody to ask questions to. So the central feature of my uh, subscription service is an Ask Danny feature,
Ooh.
where they can ask questions. So if they get a situation during the day, or if they're not sure what the right thing is, I mean, we still get about 10 a day. People always think that they're being answered by robots. I answer every single question. There are times it takes me 24 hours if I get too many, but I still answer every single question. They're all archived. So a lot of times when people have a question, they can search the archives and find that that question was already asked 7,000 times and answered.
Wow.
So that's the essence of it.
Yeah, that's incredibly generous and valuable. It's so clear
And
to me that you're such a stand for making a difference in the world. You guys, to access that, just scroll below, click the button. It'll take you straight to being able to sign up for that. And then, Danny, what's the number one thing you want to leave our audience with?
I think this year, Kate, the answer would be um, to be relentlessly optimistic. You know, uh, the difference between a true recruiter, if you've got audiences who aren't sure whether they really want to be in recruiting, here's a great test for you. If you ask the average person about how they feel about the next year, they go, "Oh, I don't know. It's about what if COVID doesn't have a vaccine, or what if it gets worse, or what if there's a surge, or what if I lose my job?" A recruiter is relentlessly optimistic. When I think about COVID, I'm automatically thinking a year from now, we're going to be able to say that it normally took 7 to 10 years to get a vaccine for previous viruses. And yet, in COVID, we were attacked by this virus, researched it, went after it with American ingenuity, innovation, against all kinds of political turmoil, came up with a vaccine in 9 months, distributed it within 6, and we eradicated that mother by June of 21. It's going to be the most amazing story. And that's the way I look at COVID, because I'm a recruiter. In between, I look for reasons to be optimistic on a daily and weekly basis. Like, for example, side benefit of COVID for me, next week, Thanksgiving, instead of me making up a reason not to see my family, I can blame COVID. It's fantastic.